know that officially the projects are kind of all over as well. So, you know, that's something else to talk about as well, which is going to be the next conversation we have. And then the last conversation, which is going to be number 50, is going to be about the future. Like, where do we go from here? Because, you know, we've been on somewhat of a journey. We've been doing this now for a year and a half. This is number 48 of 50 conversations about being a creative. And so the last two, one is going to be about, you know, the projects. What have we got from them? What have we learned? How did it go? Could it have been done better? What will you do in the future? Is there more to, you know, all those sorts of questions. And then the final one is really what next? And it's an open road. It doesn't have to be something where you know what's next. It can be that, you know, you're now left in a question. I thought I wanted this, but now I'm seeing, because, you know, actually over the course of this, you know, quite a few people have changed what it is that they want. They started out, you know, in pursuit of one thing, and then over the course of doing this, something shifted. And, you know, they've started looking for something else or looking to create something else. So it's just about what this brings up, throws up, shifts, changes, moves. So Billy says we're all getting the shift together. Yeah, and I think there is something to be said for, like, oh, what have I done here? To be said for doing this in community, because, you know, especially as creatives, it can be a very solitary existence trying to do this whole thing alone. So to be able to do this in community, as it were, like to come together, I think you can generate something that's greater than the sum of the parts. So this is kind of cool. All right, so what else we got? And yes, good to see you too, John. And William's joined. Hey, Rob, Lucy. And getting my shift together. Yes. All right, so let's start. So like I said, this one is a self-created one. It's a sort of co-created, should I say, a conversation, because this is about any questions, any comments that you guys want to share, anything basically that's come up over the course of this sort of year and a half that you've been dipping in and out of these, or been consistently sort of showing up for them. Is it like, if there's any questions or things that you want to discuss that I can maybe, you know, take a deeper look at or something like that. And Kazem Magazada has joined. Boom! Nailed it. Probably I didn't. So I'm going to start the ball rolling, because I know sometimes it takes a minute for people to get get the ball rolling in terms of the conversation. But also, the reason I had a thought this morning as well about why this is co-created, why this particular conversation, why it's good that it's co-created, is because, you know, once these conversations stop, for a time, there won't be, until I, you know, figure out what's next with these, there won't be an opportunity to come together like this. And so this is part of me sort of almost training you guys in a way to sort of create this conversation for yourselves in your life outside of what's happening here on the Sunday night, you know, or Sunday morning, as it is here. So yeah, it's kind of about, you know, just creating that thinking, exercising that thinking mechanism in the brain that can generate what we've generated over the course of the year that we've been doing this. Yeah, that's what I want to say. Okay, so Gareth says, so what's next after curfew? Has it opened new doors? That's an interesting question. You know, I think the honest answer is I don't actually know. And I think there's something about like big projects like that where it can, you know, you can go into these things with an idea that this is gonna be some sort of game changer or something. But actually, there's two things I could say. One is that sometimes the game being changed, games being changed doesn't always look how you imagine it's gonna look. Sometimes things are happening like below the surface that you're not aware of. You know, like, you know, from an actor's perspective, it could be that, you know, conversations are being had that you're not party to, you know, with your management or with casting directors that that have nothing to do with you. But also, you know, sometimes I had this realization, it was around Anne Hathaway, weirdly, but I was thinking, I realized that there's not a big break that people get, no matter what field they're in. There's never like a big break. There's actually loads of little waves, little crests, and you know, that's how careers get built. There are some people, yes, who have like huge breakout roles that leapfrog over lots of, but most of the time, you know, those people that you think are an overnight success have been at it for 10, 15 years. You know, you think about somebody like Kevin Hart, who has been grinding for years and just had a really good hustle game. And he was, you know, I heard something about how he would like collect email addresses at the end of every gig. And, you know, people, my old manager used to, you know him and see him at gigs and stuff. And he'd be like, what are you doing with all those emails? What are you going to do with them? And he was like, you know, I don't know. And then, you know, as his show got bigger and bigger, or his, you know, his fan base got bigger and bigger, he had this huge database of people, and he knew exactly where they were. So he's like, this is my Detroit fan base, I'll email them when I'm in town. And so he created his own sort of like marketing strategy. But my point is that he was grinding a lot before something happened for him. And so I don't know about, it would be lovely to think of Curfew as, right, this is it, I'm off to the races kind of thing, but it just doesn't seem to work like that. So I think it's more a case of like, just keep grinding, just keep knocking on doors and hoping that there'll be, you know, some sort of breakout moment. But if not, you just got to keep doing the work for the love of the work. Having said that, I am still writing my book, so that is actually what's next, is finishing my book. I'd say all that to say I'm finishing my book, and then after that, I don't know. Hopefully it'll be out at the end of the year. I'm very excited about that. So DJ Lincoln 666 has joined, hey, and Pat has joined as well. And Paul has asked, I had a question from when you spoke about mentors. Is there a time where you sought the help of a mentor, and how did it help? Yeah, I mean, I recently did that. I reached out to a producer who I'd worked with, and I said, look, I don't know if this is the kind of thing you do, if you even have time for something like this. And he was kind of like, no one's ever asked me. Yes, of course, I'd love to help, you know, come in for a meeting. And I think a couple of weeks later, I was in his office discussing, you know, ideas that I'd had, shows that I wanted to write. You know, he's, any way we can help, you know, asked me to send him scripts. So I'm not saying it's always going to be as perfect as that, but I think if you ask, all you can do is ask the question. And there's a bigger part of this actually, which is something that's been on my mind recently because of some things that have happened. And it's just this isn't to you, Paul, but this is just a general thing of just to remind people that the how to make those approaches, how to be in the email or the communication that you send is so important, because I receive messages like that sometimes, and you know, there are some ways that people approach you where you're just like, well, I can't take you seriously because you're doing this in such a weird way, even though it might be completely earnest and real and legit. There's a way of you know, making approaches to people that you don't know that will, you know, reap bigger dividends than some other ways. So, you know, I think that sometimes people think that this is their one chance to make an impression or get what they need from that person, and so they load all the information into, but it's like, if you really want to be working with that person and you want their help, start to build a relationship. And I know it sounds sucky in that, but like, you know their work, know what they're about. Don't send them generic messages, you know, just let them know that that you've taken the time to write a proper communication to them, you know, those sorts of things. Because otherwise, you know, so especially as people are busy, you know, sometimes you are just looking for a reason to just go, this is just a weirdo, okay, let me just, like, you know what I mean? Like, so you want to find a way to communicate with these people in a way, you know, when you're making this approach, to reassure them, because they don't know you from Adam. That's the fact of it. Do you know what I mean? So we have to find, even with myself, I just had to do this with somebody and ask them a favor. And so I really carefully worded this message, because even though I kind of know this person, but I just didn't want to, I knew that what I was asking for was a big deal, and you know, you have to acknowledge that when you're reaching out to somebody, because that's the other thing. Sometimes people, you know, people write the messages that you're sitting around waiting to help them. You know, like I just thank God you just sent me your weird request because I had nothing to do today. So yeah, it's just a little reminder. Obviously not for you, Paul, because I'm sure you do awesomely, but just a general, you know, reminder for everyone to be really sort of mindful about how those requests are made, because you can ask the same. I feel like I've got like a little hair. Just anyway, you can ask the same person, but two different ways, and one will get you a yes, and one will get you a no. And just because there's, you know, just maybe because in the message that got you the no, maybe you were a little bit generic, or you were, you know, a little bit entitled, maybe, or just overwhelmed them. Sometimes, you know, like for example. Casting directors and agents, they say here they don't want you to send attachments. So the actor is thinking, but how are they going to see my CV or resume? Or how can I send them my reel if I'm not to send attachments? Well, the reason they don't want attachments is because they don't know what the hell it is you're sending. They don't know who you are. So they just want a link to a legitimized website where all that information is. So it's little things like that of just thinking, put yourself in the shoes of the person that's receiving the communication, and then that will help you to, you know, word what you want to say in an appropriate way that's fitting to the person that you're communicating with. I'm just saying a little bit more on each question, so that because you know, sometimes the question is the tip of a big iceberg, and so I hope you don't mind if I just like go into a little bit more, you know, detail based off of the questions. But yes, with respect to a mentor, definitely I think it always helps, because it helps to see what someone at mile 13 or 14 looks like when you're at mile 1, you know, just to be in communication with them, and you know, their seeing how they are with it all could serve as an inspiration to you, to keep you going, like, yes, that's where I want to be. But you know, choose wisely with mentors, because you know, someone close to me had a real issue with a mentor who was kind of acting like this. She was making like a really big sacrifice, and it was just the wrong. The mentor was coming at it with the wrong attitude, and in the end, the person that I know just said, "Listen, I'm good," because at the end of the day, even though that person worked in their field and it would have been useful to get advice, if the person's got a funky attitude, it isn't of value, because you're going to always feel like, am I taking too much from them, or you know, can they spare the time? You would be better off with a mentor who isn't even in your field but can speak on what it means to be a creative, or speak on particular challenge that you might be dealing with that they've dealt with in their field, than to speak to somebody who doesn't, you know, who is acting like they've made some huge sacrifice by spending an hour on the phone with you once a month or something, or you know, whatever it is. So yeah, so don't feel like you have to have any old mentor, because actually being a mentor is training for that person as well as it is for you. So you're a gift to them in a way. You're a gift to each other, let me put it like that. I hope that's a full answer to that. Hey Jeff, Pat says hello, Phil, hi, and George and John, hi, and Gareth asks, how's the book coming along? So yeah, this has been like the longest project I've ever done, because it's 2.5 years, and it's been one of the hardest creative things I've ever done, because I went into it very naive, thought it wouldn't take me very long, thought I knew how to do it, and it nearly killed me. At times I have decided to give the money back. For sure, I even had a conversation with my agent about it at one point. I was just like, listen, I'm out. You know, tell them I'm defeated, you know, I'll give back the advance. But, you know, as time's gone on, I've found a way to work in a way that has made it enjoyable again. Tom Swanston, who's on here, who's a coach, and some of you, I think, have had coaching conversations with him, said something very useful to me about you know, when I was in the midst of poor me and, you know, why are they doing this to me? Even though I chose to do it. He said, well, what if you were to carry on writing this book? What would be the benefit? He said something like that. And I was like, oh, and it just like really just like completely fell into place. Like, of course, you've always wanted to be a writer. This is writing. This is what it is. It isn't necessarily you sort of Hemingway-esque, sort of sitting on a veranda, having one good thought and then going and writing that down and spending the rest of the day on the beach. This is, you know, it's this real graft, you know, and it isn't always pretty, but, you know, the minute you think about the entirety of the whole project, that's when it becomes overwhelming. If I think about just this chapter or just this day's writing, then it became achievable. So the book's coming along okay, in answer to your question. It's close to being finished, but, you know, then I have to hand it into the editor, and the editor might have her notes, and then there could be more work to do. But I'm kind of prepared for it. But I also think it's in really good shape now, because she gave me some really good notes and feedback on the last draft that I did. So it may well be in your shops later this year. And on the note of a book, one of the things that I'd like to do, or I've been considering doing with the live chats, is to turn this whole 50 episode conversation into a book. I want it to be, you know, fun, funny, inspiring, motivational, and honest as well about what it really means to be a creative. So that is, I'm not going to talk about that one too much, just in case I can't come through on that. But I think it could be a really nice book. And, you know, the reason that I even started doing these conversations was because I felt like I was hungry for them. And I hope that, you know, if I, you know, turn these conversations into a book, that people will be hungry for that and just have a different perspective on being a creative in their own lives, be it, you know, on an amateur level, or if they want to be a pro. So yeah. So Ian says, oh, hey, Phil says hi. And then Ian says, a good sense of community is what this has generated, Andy, all from your time and willingness to share with us all. Well, thank you very much, Ian. Yeah, I mean, I hope that somehow you guys find each other, and I don't know, I don't know how that would happen, but I hope that there's a way, you know, if there's people that you've resonated with, that you reach out to each other and just like offer the odd word of support or follow each other or something, so that you can see, you know, their creative journeys continuing beyond these conversations. So S. Runners and Zena Christoph says hi. William says Shazam too. In the words of Zachary Levi, that's above my pay grade. And I don't know that my character would be in the second one anyways, but yes, that would be cool if she was, and if there was. Killer Clown 66 is joined. Hey, Pauline. Oh, hey! Paulina, cool, hi. Gwyneth, C.S. Abbott, Carly, hey. Kevin, yo, what's up? Paul says, I guess it's also about having realistic expectations of what you expect from them. Yeah, and I mean, maybe we went into this when we had the mentoring conversation, but I think it's also, yeah, if you set the context for what it is right off the bat, because sometimes we go into relationships with expectations we're not really conscious of, and we start to get disappointed when the person doesn't meet. And this isn't just even to do with mentoring, this is life, you know. And then we start to get disappointed because the person isn't meeting our expectations when we haven't discussed what our expectations were. Well, at least when you start a mentoring relationship, at least you can have that conversation. If you don't, then you have no real reason to expect anything, because neither of you have set the context or the boundaries for what's appropriate. You don't know when you're going to call each other, if you're going to meet in person, how long the relationship's going to last, what you know, where you're going to end up at the end of the process. So yeah, having you know, just because they're in the mentor role, it doesn't mean that you can't take ownership of the situation and say, look, this is what I had in mind. How does that work for you? This is what I'd like to achieve out of this. You know, you're knowledgeable about what you need. They're knowledgeable about what they can give. So, you know, when you take those two things, then you can create a really sort of solid, you create a solid foundation for the relationship, so that you both get something from it. And then the other person's not going to feel like, God, this mentor just keeps calling me, or mentee, sorry, keeps calling me, or, you know, whatever. Because they know what the rules are. And then when the rules get breached, you guys can pull each other up on it. You know what I mean? Like, really, this is life. But none of us ever set context for our relationships. We just wing it and then get pissed off with people when they don't do what we want them to do. Carly Waves, hiya. Big Fella Ian, Agnew and Bavanau Cooler has joined. Agnew says, hey, yes, yes. Okay, good. Questions. Keep the questions coming, guys. Or any thoughts or anything you want to share that you've experienced over the course of, you know, these conversations, or in taking on this project, or even the last one, or just anything that anything you've noticed that you want to share. Any other questions? Any comments? Anyways, I think I've just said the same thing like 5 times. One other thing that I wanted to share, which might provoke some thoughts for you guys, is something that I have started to see in myself, and I don't know if this will resonate with you guys, is I've noticed that my dreams that I don't necessarily always share, or are they dreams, are they fantasies, but they're really big. They're really big. But there's a part of me that doesn't hold them as real. Like, they're big, but they're also almost like fantasies. And I realized the other day that whilst those big dreams are absolutely legitimate, you know, why not dream of, you know, whatever in your field of, if you're a painter, of hanging in the National Gallery or whatever it is, why not dream of those things? But in the meantime, what are those small goals that you can set that are the little crests of waves that will get you there? And I realized that for me, because the person I am today is not the person that can generate those big dreams. The person I am today is the person that can, you know, generate and make real on smaller goals, smaller dreams. But those smaller goals, smaller dreams are the small waves and crests that lead to the bigger and bigger dream, and they change you. You're forever changed after each of these goals is met, because it can be done, and you know, all the things that you learned from it and the ways that it shaped you and changed you mean that you're now a different person that can create that next bigger goal, and that shapes and changes you so that you can create an even big. So rather than, you know, what I realized for myself, I don't know if you guys agree, I'd love to hear your thoughts, is like, rather than fixating on, you know, say if you're an actor, I must get to the Oscars, you know, rather than fixating on something like that, maybe it's about, okay, you know, if you work out what is the immediate step before Oscars. Well, you have to be in an Oscar nominated film. What's the immediate step before that? Well, you have to get, you know, cast in an Oscar. Well, you have to be good in it first. What's the immediate step before? And you keep tracking it back in realistic, honest, incremental steps back to today. What do I have to do today to get to that next step that will take me to the next step, to take me to the Oscars? What's the next step I have to do today? And do that, make that a goal. That's what I suddenly realized. Is like make that my goal, because that, it's like saying, how do I get to the top of this ladder? You don't take one fuck off massive, you know, step and then suddenly you're at the top of a ladder. It's ridiculous. And actually, you know, what if there's all kinds of gems and wonderful lessons and people and gifts and, you know, all kinds of wonders that are on that way that you'll miss if you do that huge, you know, leapfrog to the top. So to get to the top of a ladder, you step on the first rung. Now, some people can take them 2 at a time, but at the end of the day, there's no right way of climbing up that ladder. Some people take 2 at a time. They might have to stop halfway and catch their breath. Some people take them 1 at a time. They will move slower, but they might actually catch up with that person that took 2 at a time, because they're realizing, oh, this isn't even the ladder I wanted to be on. God damn it! Now I've got to go back down and start. Do you know what I mean? So that was just something that that occurred to me the other day. That you know, where, you know, things like The Secret, you know, want to talk about, you know, dream big and you imagine it will become real. It's not quite as simple as that, because the who you are isn't capable of manifesting at that level yet, because you don't hold it, when I say you, I'm talking about me. But it might apply to you too, that you're not a clearing for that yet, because you haven't had the experiences that make you able to manifest something like that. But you go on that you take that next step, then you become the clearing to create something even bigger, and then bigger and bigger and bigger. Does that make sense? So for me, it's like how it's affected me like day to day is that I'm now thinking next steps. What's next? Rather than how on earth am I going to get to that mountaintop? I'm just thinking, what's the next step I have to take? And that is how you would literally get to the top of an actual mountaintop. Okay, so, hey George, how's it going? And Amber's joined, hi. Paul says, we can start a Facebook group for those who want to keep the sense of community going. Just a thought, that's a lovely idea. Agnew Lee says, preach. And Cash Bond has joined. And George says, short-term goals, and I see you corrected that, long-term dreams. Yeah, I mean, I think that sounds about right, actually. It's like, but the two aren't mutually exclusive, obviously. They fit into each other, and the long-termness gives the opportunity for more blue sky thinking, and then the short-termness is more practical. But as you know, when we had that conversation about purpose, you know, it's got fundamentally it needs to be shaped by what it is that's driving you, really what gets you out of bed in the morning, what's important to you. I really loved when Ryan's not here at the moment, but you know, when he was talking about being a community police officer and how that he just really loves helping people. And so from there, see, he could end up in any kind of role or job that allows him to help people, because it isn't about being a community police officer, it's about helping people. And the same with all of us with our goals and dreams and all the rest of it, is as long as it's coming from that deep within us calling, it's gonna work itself out. And if the goals or the dreams aren't in service of that fundamental calling, they're not the right things for you. And so that's a good way of clearing out what doesn't need to be done, what activities are not in service of any of those things. Do you know what I mean? Because it's very easy for us all to get distracted, like, oh, shiny thing, I'll get involved in that project. I'm going to become a YouTuber. I'm going to start painting murals. I'm going to start photographing animals. It's like, what the fuck has that got to do with anything? Do you know what I mean? Unless it does. But often people, the only reason I would suggest to do those things, those all shiny distractions, is if they give you so much joy that actually it is worth the diversion. Because I'm not advocating for people becoming so single-minded about trying to get somewhere that they take, you know, they turn their backs on joyful experiences. No, obviously, if something is just lights you up, then you know, you being joyfully doing an activity is a gift to the world and to yourself. So don't deny the world that. But what I'm saying is, you know, sometimes you get into something and it's like, yeah, this will be the answer. This will get me where I want to get to, and it's not even the same game as where you want to get to. Not even this. Do you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying. Gwyneth says, I learned that every project takes time, so I don't have to rush. And if I fail, it's not even a fail, it's a lesson. Absolutely. And sometimes we get the same lesson over and over again until we've learned. And so if something is continually showing up in your space, it is an opportunity to just like have a look and reflect and just go, why does this always keep happening? Like someone was describing to me once how they were talking about business partners and creative partners that they'd had, and how this person had always felt like they were let down, like the person got involved in other things and that they were left holding the baby, as it were. I very tentatively suggested, is it possible that you are the space or the clearing, you know, for that to occur? You know, are you on some levels picking these business partners who you on some level know that that's what they're going to do? You know, because it it might feed into a particular story that we've got about ourselves, about always being the victim, always being the one left holding the baby. It's always down to me. I'm always on my own. So subconsciously you go around picking people that are gonna just give you that story by being a bit flaky, bit useless. Like I remember the last person I went out with, when we broke up, I asked a girlfriend to come over and help me move get my stuff into a van. And on the day, she texted me and said, "Oh, so sorry, period pains, can't make it, blah, blah, blah." And I was furious because this was such a distressful day, something went wrong with the van, so I had to go down to the office and they didn't have one, so I had to go home and then I had to wait for them I shouted at them and made them deliver it, and then in the middle of all that she's like, "Oh, sorry babes," and I was livid. But when the dust settled and I'd moved and just had a moment to think, I was just like, it was crazy that I asked her to help, because all through our relationship, she had been the flaky no-show. Like whenever we met, I always had this sort of, anxiety of like, is this gonna be the one where she calls and says she can't make it? Oh, okay, she made it this time. Okay, and then next time she wouldn't, and then, so it was very hit and miss. It wasn't like she never showed up, but it was like, there was enough times that if I'd really thought about it, I would have realized she's not in my life to be the reliable, I'll help you dig a hole to hide the body type of friend. She's just a hang out and drink friend, and blah. So I say all that to say, sometimes we have to have we've generated these experiences to get the lesson, and then once we've got the lesson, then we can move on from them. So, and also on the note of like a failure, who said that the first attempt is the one that's supposed to work? This is myth that we have as human beings, that the first attempt should be the only attempt. Like, I go back to when I used to smoke, and I've told you many times before, like I made about 20 attempts to stop. Sometimes it would last months, sometimes it would last an afternoon, But who's to say that one attempt was the only attempt? Nobody. That's it's a made up thing that we've all bought into, and we all believe that, oh, well, it didn't work out, therefore somehow I screwed up. Maybe I shouldn't even try again, and maybe this isn't even right for me, and maybe I'm not talented enough, and maybe. When actually, winners, people who win, they try and they try and they try and they keep going until they get what they want. Every person that you see who's successful has failed and started again and failed and started again. Look how many times Simon Cowell was bankrupt, like 3 times. And I'm not talking like Donald Trump business bankrupt. I'm talking about personally bankrupt. And he's Simon Cowell, so we know about his sort of financial situation. So this fear of failure is unfounded. But if you can overcome it, if you can master it, then you can have the things that you want. And you don't worry if you're unconcerned, or you don't let concern of what other people think about you get in the way, then it gives you the freedom to fail so that you can reach your successes. Amelia has joined. Hi. And Andreas Bringsley has joined. Agnew Lee says, life is about taking risks. It surely is. And choosing to be a just checking the time, choosing to be a creative is a huge risk, because unlike other career paths or vocations, it's not laid out. If you become a doctor, like up until probably the first, I would say like 10, 12 years of your career, you pretty much know where you can go and what's possible. And I don't know if I've ever met an unemployed doctor. In fact, if you include the education, that's a good 15, 20 years of your life sorted. Unless you kill somebody or whatever, exactly where you're going and how it's going to go down. Creatives do not, from day to day, we don't know what's going to happen. So even the fact that you even do it, whether it be on an amateur level, as a hobby or as a profession, you are already risking yourself, because not only, you know, materially in terms of your life are you taking a risk, but also you know, you're putting your heart out there, because a true creative is bearing their soul, is putting their heart out there. And sometimes I find it kind of funny because, you know, especially when I'm watching men do the acting, you know, and I just think it's kind of funny because, like, when men are playing really macho roles, I think that's so sweet, because even a macho role, you have to put your heart out there. You're being a creative, you're being, do you know what I mean? I just find it's almost like a disconnect, do you know what I mean? If someone's going out like killing and shooting and da-da-da, at some point they're gonna have like, they're just putting their heart out there by being a creative, and I just find that really, really amusing. Because if you really were that macho, you could actually join the army. So there was obviously some sort of softness in you that, yeah. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like, I don't know. I always think that, like, when I see people like Jason Statham and stuff like that, but it's like, but you are an actor. You are about sort of searching inside yourself to create a character and putting your heart on the line and all that. Even though you're shooting guns and ripping the heads off sharks and things like that, you're an actor. Anywho, Amber says, I've been reading about manifesting as well as working on language change on this interesting journey. This is great, yeah. And I think we talked about language early doors, and just to sort of go back over that. One of the things that is very important is what we say about ourselves and our careers, you know, because they're not just words, they shape our reality. How we speak about what's going on in our lives shapes our reality. And even yesterday, 2 friends of mine called me out on, you know, talking negatively about, not negatively, but being underplaying some things that have happened. And sometimes we hold the reality of a situation in such a way that we find it really difficult to change our language. We're like, but that's how it is. It is hard for people of color, or the women don't ever get those roles, or nobody wants my paintings, or I'm just not good enough. You don't understand, you know. And so, as much as anything, it's about catching ourselves in the act of speaking this, because you speak this shit into existence, it becomes real. It becomes real in the sense of it's your reality. Of course it's not real, but it becomes real in the sense of that is how the world starts to look to you. And because the world starts to look like that to you, that's how you start to react to the world, to respond to people around you. You know, you start to filter out the good and only see the negative that upholds this story that you've got about yourself not being good enough, or your work not being good enough, or nobody giving you a chance, or, you know, whatever the story is. So language is profoundly important, especially when it comes to being a creative, where we're self-creating our path. You know, because if we're not speaking negatively, if we're not speaking positively about our stuff, who will? You know, the only person that cares, there's nobody that cares more about your career than you. You know, it doesn't matter whether you've got an agent or a best friend or a partner or whatever. The person who gives a shit the most about your career is you. And if you're not speaking positively on it, then why the fuck should anybody else? That's words for me, really. As much as anything. Crispy and Smalley has joined, and Gwyneth says it's basically what you said every time. Haha, cool. Not sure what that's about, actually. It's basically what you said every time. Because I'm a bit behind with the comments, because I'm going off on one, aren't I? All right, let me catch up. All right. Amber says, I think that's I like the big goal, but I'm all about next step. Yes. And Agnew says, yes, girl, again. Burton 3869 has joined. I'm grateful for you, honey. Thank you, Agnew. And Amelia says, it's also good not to compare our dreams to someone else's goals. Yeah, we are all different. I think we are in a world where people are told to compare. Individuality is so important. Yeah, I would even just word it slightly differently. Yes, oh my gosh, yes. That, first of all, the comparison thing is really problematic. And I've noticed that sometimes I get like anxiety. It can feel anxiety when I go on Instagram, because my brain is literally going, look at all these people winning and look how you are not winning. Look at how successful they are. Look how their life is just a dream and you are sleeping on a futon mattress because your furniture's bitch. Yeah. Anyway, do you know what I mean? Like, it's so easy to to create this almost, I don't know, can I say them and me sort of situation. There's the world out there where everything's great, and over here life is not very good. And on the individuality front, I think it's more just being authentic. In the sense of like, you don't have to be an individual, you don't have to do anything. You just have to be authentically you, you know, and everything else will fall into place. The moment you start to try and be that, then you're being something that's kind of being shaped by the conditions around you or whatever. We just have to be authentically ourselves, and how we do that is just by being present in every moment, and that will take care of everything. Yeah. Andy Foster, sorry I'm late, he says, no problem. And what's this? GH London, is that maybe? I don't know. You're in Australia. Excellent, Agnew. And you need people in your life who are available. Yes, that's true. Yeah, it is true. But also, I suppose, because I see some of these things sometimes that are like, oh, you need to get rid of the negative people in your life, and you need to surround, and that is true. Yes, obviously surround yourself with people that are, but you also need to get a robustness about you where, I'm not talking you, generally we need to get a robustness about us whereby those negative people or people who are an energy drain or whatever can't leech from us in the way that they can from some other people. So as much as I'm not necessarily completely an advocate for get rid of negative people out of your life, because who knows, they may have a lesson to teach you. And if you can hold on to who you are in the face of someone being, difficult, energy leech, rude, demeaning, whatever it is, then actually you're stronger than if you have to constantly keep removing yourself from those people. But you're right, you do also want to be around people who are open and available to who you are, because, you know, human beings are a we need relationships. We're a species that requires relatedness. We don't function very well on our own for long periods of time. Babies die if they don't have like human connection. They literally, there's parts of their development that cannot take place unless they have, you know, human contact. And so this is really important to us. So it's a good point. Alistair's joined. Hiya. Joaquin. Hiya. Alistair McCain. And Agnes says, girl, I'm mixed race, I understand. Okay. Oh, I might be very behind with the comments. Okay, so Shula, John, okay, says true words. And Agnes says, I'm very gay. Got it. Ryan's joined. Hiya. Alistair says, is gingerism a thing? I suffer years of bullying being a redhead. Oh, how do you feel about that now? Because this is interesting, because I used to do stand-up, and I had some material that was predicated on, various jokes that people make about redheads. And I got a message from somebody who'd heard one of my routines on the radio, and he said that his son young son had asked why the lady on the radio was making fun of people with red hair. And it really made me think, actually, because we take it as not a thing, but actually it can make life very difficult for people. So I changed the I changed the routine. So yeah, how do you feel about that now? Because I think it is a thing, and I think that it's a hereditary genetic thing, and so therefore in some way it is a race thing. So for us to also be so comfortable with making those sorts of jokes, because you wouldn't do it if it was a black person, you wouldn't do it if it was an Asian person, or like sort of Chinese or Southeast Asian. So but we've kind of gotten into this comfortable thing where, and we have for many years, even I was watching Game of Thrones, it's like there was a ginger joke in that, and it's like making fat jokes, it's kind of the same wheelhouse of just, it's just a joke, what next, we can't joke about anything. But it's kind of like, there's so many things that you can make a joke about, and someone's appearance that they can do nothing to check, it's just part of their sort of genetic makeup, probably isn't you shouldn't feel that great about yourself if that's that's all you've got. But we all live and learn. I think people come to the realization that it's not cool at different times. So I can't really condemn people as such, because I did make that mistake myself. But yes, how do you feel now about it? Richard has joined. John says, learn who to keep close. Yeah, I think that's the thing. And going back to that thing about, you know, who you have in your circle and who's not. It's just like, yeah, being able to discern who should be in a circle, because I wouldn't necessarily advocate for keeping people who are difficult in your life as in a circle, but I wouldn't also advocate for getting rid of them necessarily, or that being the automatic response is to get rid of them, you know, because you never know, they might have a lesson to teach you. But yeah, definitely in a circle, it's just like, yeah, let's be mindful about who we let in, because that they have access to our soft underbelly, as it were. Do you know what I mean? So you don't necessarily want those guys being able to have an impact, you know, strong impact on us. Raji Singh and Kola I, hello. And Jakeem says, everyone is needed in my world, good and bad. They all contribute to me in some way. Aha, cool, excellent. And Amber says, gotta go. I'm gonna watch this later. Cool, okay. So let me just see if there's any more thoughts that I want to share. A couple of things that I thought of just to round out. Oh, hang on. So, Alison says, I turned it into a positive by embracing it. Look at Prince Harry, Ed Sheeran, big ginger guy from Game of Thrones. Yes. And Vincent van Gogh. My point being, redheads are popular or in. Well, I'll tell you something, you know, I've lived in the States for quite a while, and I've noticed that in adverts, there are so many redheads, and I don't know what that means the advertisers are thinking about you, but you guys got game when it comes to the advertising world, do you know what I mean? They want you. So, and actually, you know, at the end of the day, it is a beautiful hair color, like there's no denying it, and yeah, it's just people's own stupidity, and I think it will get to a point where it's just not cool anymore. Like, it's not even a cool joke. It'd be like doing a cod Indian accent or something. It would just be like, dude, what's wrong with you? So yeah, I think we, like lots of things, I think we'll just it'll pass into just like an old way, type of humor that we're not that we're not so into anymore. So Raj says, hi, you're a great comedian, thank you. And Kaj Miko has joined. Raj says, what's your next project? When will you be on TV next? When will I be on TV next? On Friday. Well, it depends where in the world you are, but this Friday coming, I'll be on Sky One on curfew. And in your cinemas now in Shazam, so that's fun. Carly says, Bruce Springsteen loves a redhead, my hero. I did not know that. And William says, my hair started to grow grey when I was 12. Wow. Imagine the mockery. Whoa, that would be tough. That would be tough. Kids, people say kids are lovely, but kids are brutal. Absolutely brutal. But yeah, I can imagine that not being easy. I mean, to be honest with you, anything that isn't the norm is so tough when you're at school. And then even when you think that you're the most sort of like mundane, you know, asinine, is that the right word? Anyways, but really sort of just bland human being, even then they'll still find a reason to bully you. It's just like, it's crazy. It's crazy. So I was supposed to have a brace when I was at school, and so I got two teeth that are like growing upwards into my, what are they called? Impacted teeth or something like that. And yeah, I was supposed to get a brace, and I was just like, life is too hard in this place. I cannot add train tracks, because they would have had to been like those proper train track ones, because they had to draw down the teeth. I was like, I'm not adding that to my life. Nah, not gonna happen. So I didn't get the braces, and then it screwed up my teeth. Kaj Miko, truth comes from children's mouths. Yeah, and they look, okay, I'm not gonna go into a rant about children, but yeah, sometimes children speak the truth and sometimes they don't, and sometimes they say mean things, and sometimes they can be a bit selfish, and sometimes they can be adorable. But you know, let's not pretend that school can be brutal, and that they're, you know, that you know, as a group, kids can be quite mean. I think we've all, you know, experienced that to some degree. Steve, hi. Paul says, I did the same, re-braces. I had them as an adult instead. Yeah, I think, well, I'll tell you about it another time. I had to take other action because I left it so long. Anyways, Kat, hiya. Hope drama school's going well. And William says, 50 years on my age has caught up with my hair. So happy now. Okay, good times. And Cabera has joined. Well, Cabera. All right, listen, Steve, listen, do you have any comments or questions or thoughts that you want to share? Because I was just about to sign off. We've got like a few minutes to go. Sorry, it's like this time doesn't seem to work for you. Carly says, I had braces as an adult too. I think I'm going to do it. I feel like my teeth are starting to become a little bit misaligned, so not too bad. But anyway, I didn't come in here to talk about teeth, but here we are talking about teeth. Does anyone else, any final thoughts? Just a reminder that the next conversation, I think it's the 21st of April, that's going to be about projects. So finally we'll bring together, and listen, I want you to come with just something that you want to share about your project. How did it go? What did you learn? What's next? What are you going to give it another go? Is there more to it than is there more to it than what you just did? Is it part of a bigger picture? Let's see, because like I said, the project is almost like a byproduct of the process that we're on. This is about setting us all up for the future so that we can really continue to create in our lives in a way that's authentic and of value and takes us where we want to go. So, 21st, I think it is going to be about projects, and then the final one is going to be about the future. Really, what's next? Where do we go from here in terms of our creative journeys? Which is a conversation I'm really looking forward to, because where I started from in terms of doing this is very different from where I feel I am today. And as much as I'm not being flippant when I say that a lot of the things that I say, they're of value to me. I'm generating this as I'm speaking it into existence. And so some of the things that I'm hearing myself say, I'm like, oh, I need to remember that. Okay, that's important. You know what I mean? That's important for me on my journey. So I've been on a process with you guys as well. So I'm looking forward to just bringing that to a conclusion for now. Like, who knows where, this whole thing is where we might pick up the thread again in the future. But at the moment, this is 50 on the 28th, conversation 50 on the 28th of April will be the last one. And so it will be great to have that conversation about where we're going next. So let me see. So Carly says, thanks Andy for a great session. Thank you for being here, and thank you all for being here. George says, this has been a wonderfully random chat. Well, we started talking about goals and we ended up talking about teeth. How random can that be? Steve says, my project has stalled again. Message me. William says that they're fine, Andy. They're fine. I don't know what that means. Steve says, are you stateside? Yes, I am. I'm flying today. Carly says, your teeth look straight as hell. I can feel that. Anyway, I can feel they've moved. Kajmiko says, can't take part in of that. Never mind, just tune in anyways, because I think there'll be things that are said that are useful for even if you haven't undertaken a project. And that's important to say to people, because the projects will also be a way of creating a conversation out of what's come out of the project. So there's no, just because you haven't done one doesn't mean that the conversation won't be valuable to you. And Gwyneth says, what really helped me was it doesn't matter that it doesn't matter. This really helps me with anxiety. That's amazing. I'm really delighted to hear that, because there's freedom in that. And just having something really easy to go to, just a little touchstone to remind you of that phrase, that fact, is really helpful. Katie, hi, I'm just about to sign off. And Steve says, safe travels, getting the Shazam out of here. And Jakeem says, look forward to projects. They give me a lot of inspiration and insight. Amazing. All right, guys. Well, listen, thank you so much for being here. The old conversations are going to be up on my YouTube channel, and this will be on my Instagram story for another 24 hours. And Oh, I'm gonna miss you guys. I'm gonna miss you guys. All right, listen, have a wonderful rest of your Sunday if you're in this part of the world, and enjoy your Sunday evening if you're in that part of the world. And yeah, I will see you on the gram and speak to you again on the 21st. Lots of love. Bye.